Hey loves, welcome back to yet another video. So this one is how to make this really nice, sexy, Christmassy kind of themed dress, off the shoulder dress that I really liked. So stay tuned to check out all the steps on how to make it. So basically you're going to start by making sure before you buy fabric, that it's a four-way stretch velvet fabric. And then you're going to place the fabric on both, like folded in half basically, on the wrong side. You're going to be working on the wrong side. Here I'm starting and marking the bottom of the skirt. I usually put measurements, but I feel like it doesn't make any sense because obviously we're going to be different measurements if you're watching this. So I'll just show you. The bottom I just measured how like long I want the one side, like from the front, to be. So all my measurements, I did my whole body divided by 2. So here this is the height of the dress, and just kind of marking off at every like 5 centimeters, or not 5 centimeters, sorry, 5 inches, where I feel like on my body the curves kind of started to change so that it fit well. What I definitely will recommend, and I did not do, would be to make sure that the fabric, make sure when you're doing your measurements, don't add seam allowance because it's so stretchy. You want it to hug you. So I just feel like I did that to begin with, and I had to cut at the end, and it just didn't make any sense. So to save yourself the hassle, just make sure it's exact measurements. Maybe even minus an inch if you really want it that tight. I love my outfits tight, so even minusing an inch from your measurements would work. So I'm just marking and going. My hips are 42 inches, so that divided by 2 is 21, so making sure 21 across. The below my knees is 29 inches, so I wanted to make sure that it was half of that, which is, oh my god, my math, which is what, 14.5. And then I wanted to make sure that goes across. So you'll see later when I draw it out how it makes sense, the shape that you're generally trying to go for. And it doesn't have to be so hippie because, like I said, I like my stuff tight. So it's just going to hug your hips anyways. So this literally is just me marking where I need to know where everything's going. And then at this point, I'm drawing out freelancing from what is in my mind, which I don't necessarily recommend. But I did kind of have, like, you could see like my markers I was making in the previous little clip, just of showing how it's going to be drawn out to look like a dress, like with hips and whatnot. And I'm literally going to draw the entire thing out. And from there, I feel like I ended up trimming it a little less hippie, only because, like I mentioned earlier, I put a seam allowance when I just didn't really need one because it's so stretchy, the material. So I ended up kind of trimming it, and it wasn't as hippie, but keep that in mind when you are making your measurements. And then yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut out the entire thing. And remember, you're doing 2 layers, so essentially, like, your dress, this is going to be your entire dress minus the shoulder part, but you're cutting out, so just be careful that you have 2 layers. Yeah, just keep in mind you have 2 layers. So at this point, to make my life easier, just to make sure that literally both sides are even, I just like to fold it in half, and then I like to cut the other side. So I didn't necessarily draw that side because I just always do this when I'm making like symmetrical pieces. I don't know, it's just my thing. Like I just feel like it saves me time since I don't use patterns. And shout out if you, honestly, right below, if you do use patterns. I feel like it's a lot easier, and it's just kind of like a struggle for me to do this every single time, especially if I'm going to make a dress the same later on. Like literally the same kind of like concept, just like maybe a different color, and I'm just going ahead and remeasuring everything yet again. But when I don't have patterns, like, this is just like the easiest thing for me to do, so I know that everything is even and symmetrical and makes sense. I felt like the top was a little bit off, so I did end up trimming a bit, which worked out because it ended up fitting so nicely at the top anyways, when I did sew the two pieces together. And like you can see, it's very hippie. Like those are like, that's what my hips are. But when you want it to be snug, you don't need it to be so hippie. Like you want it to be tight in that area. So I definitely trim it down. I just feel like I just left too much room for my hips. But anyways, now I'm marking to do the shoulders. This is 3 inches by 3 inches. I would not recommend this. I feel like I could see my bra at some points when I would be just like chilling in the dress. So I probably do 2 inches, maybe 1.5. Like you just don't really need that much. You just need enough for your arms to like fit through, and it not to like hug your armpit too much for you to like, you know, move around comfortably. So I definitely would not do 3 inches. So do 2 or 1. What I would recommend is measuring a shirt that you already have that's off shoulder and just seeing like whether you're small, medium, or large, like how that sits well and like the measurements on that. So here I am just also like folding it in half just so that I can cut. Even though I did draw out the previous line, I want to make sure that the dress is very symmetrical and very on point. So now I'm just going to go ahead, pin everything down, make sure everything is in place, because if something shifts, there goes your whole dress. So I'm just literally pinning at every point that I feel necessary, and then yeah, you just go ahead and sew. But before I do end up sewing, I am going to cut out the shoulder part. And I did, you're going to be folding it in half. So I did keep in mind that it was about 16 inches, I believe, because I did want it folded to be about 8. And you do have to keep in mind a seam allowance. So I was comfortable with 16 inches. And then across my shoulders is 44. And the mistake I made was adding a seam allowance to that. That part will stretch. Like the part where I'm cutting right now, like that length will stretch. So you really don't need to add a seam allowance to that part. Just the length part, because you're going to sew it and you want it to go over your boobs and sit comfortably. Like you don't want your boobs to kind of show on an off the shoulder kind of dress. It just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I'm just gonna cut and cut and cut and then I'm gonna go ahead and fold it in half. Now I folded it the wrong side in this clip, but you're gonna fold it so that the right side is facing out. Here I just rolled a very rolled over and rolled over again 1/4 inch to do the hems, and then I did it on both sides, and I do end up doing that as well for the bottom of my dress. And this is literally what the shoulder part's gonna look like. You're gonna sew that part closed that I just showed, and I left little notches to center a fold, like center folds. I forgot what it's called. I haven't been in sewing school in a while, but the center notch, just to make sure I know where the center is. I think it looks so weird when people make clothes and you can tell that the center is off. Like it drives me off the walls, like up the walls, off the walls, up the walls. But yeah, then you're just gonna go ahead and sew this part together. And this is the final look. If you guys watch my Get Ready With Me, you'll definitely have noticed this dress, my Christmas Get Ready With Me, which I'll leave a link below. So this is the final dress. This is what it's definitely gonna look like when you're done. Gorgeous, gorgeous dress. I feel like any velvet color, it would look so bomb in. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll check y'all in another video. Bye, loves.